My mother-in-law took my baby to give her to my infertile sister-in-law, saying I wasn't capable of being a mother, so I made them pay dearly for what they did to me. I'm a 28-year-old woman, and I have been married to my 29-year-old husband for 4 years. We met through a mutual friend and started dating 6 years ago. After 2 years of dating, we believed it was finally time to get married. A little over a year ago, I found out I was pregnant, and 4 months ago, I gave birth to my daughter. Everything was perfect. Our families got along well, and my in-laws seemed to really like me too. My 25-year-old sister-in-law, in particular, was very close to me, and we would go out for brunch almost every other weekend. She had been married for 2 years and had been trying for a baby for almost a year but with no success. When my husband and I got pregnant without even intending to, she got herself checked and found out she was infertile. We felt terrible for her and tried to be low-key about the baby and pregnancy whenever we were around her. However, she took an interest in it herself. She told me she was happy for me and her brother, so we didn't need to downplay our excitement around her, as that would only make her feel guilty. Her husband was very supportive of her throughout, and so were we because she had always been a sweet person. It was heartbreaking that she wouldn't get to experience pregnancy, especially when she had been trying for so long. We did our very best to be kind to her because she was suffering, and she seemed to be okay with us as well. I've been staying at home with our daughter since I'm on maternity leave, but my husband's company, unfortunately, does not offer paternity leave, so he still has to go to work. It's difficult to do everything by myself, so I've been looking into nannies because I thought it would be a good idea to start phasing my daughter into childcare for when I eventually return to work. In the meantime, since I haven't found a nanny yet, I sometimes asked for help from either my mother-in-law or my mother. If my mother wasn't available, then I'd ask my mother-in-law, and vice versa. I've always had a good relationship with my mother-in-law and didn't think inviting her to my house to watch her granddaughter for some time was anything out of the ordinary. My husband was okay with it too. That was until 3 days ago when my mother-in-law did something absolutely psychotic. Last week, my husband left for a business trip, and he only returned yesterday. On this particular day, I was in the shower and left my mother-in-law with the baby in the living room. When I finished showering and came out to check on my daughter, I realized the house was empty. My mother-in-law was nowhere to be seen, and neither was my daughter. In a state of panic, I called her to ask if they had gone out for a walk, but she declined my call and instead sent me a text. The message said she had decided to take my baby away so that a more deserving woman could have her, referring to my sister-in-law. The message also stated that she didn't believe I was competent enough to be a mother in the first place, and that the universe had probably made a mistake by letting me get pregnant and making my sister-in-law infertile. She said she was going to correct that mistake herself. She claimed I was no good as a mother, so she was giving my daughter to her daughter because she deserved a baby more than I did. I was livid that she had done such a thing and immediately called the police to report what had happened. I was shivering even though it was summer because I was terrified of what would become of my daughter. I kept blaming myself for letting my mother-in-law watch her. I told the police to go directly to my sister-in-law's house because that's where I suspected my daughter would be, and I drove there myself. We didn't find either of them there. Then we decided to go to my mother-in-law's house where I found my father-in-law looking absolutely lost when he saw the police car behind me. I tried to explain the situation to him as quickly as I could and asked if he knew anything that could help us locate them. Luckily, my father-in-law came to the rescue. He told me he had overheard his wife speaking to his daughter on the phone about a hotel nearby, but she had refused to elaborate when he asked her about it. He hadn't thought much of it at the time, but when we asked, he recalled the name of the hotel and even led us there. We found my mother-in-law and sister-in-law hiding out there with my baby. They were screaming and cursing at me, even as they were being placed under arrest. It was insane to think I had ever let these women into my life and my home. I don't know what their plan was. Probably to hide out in the hotel for a few days and then leave. I don't care anymore either. All that matters to me is that I have my daughter back. I was incredibly grateful that my father-in-law chose to help me, despite being well aware of the repercussions. He knew his wife and daughter would definitely face jail time for what they did because it was literally kidnapping. But he chose to help me and lead me to the hotel. He could have withheld that information to save his wife and daughter, but he didn't, and I'm so thankful for it. I called my husband immediately after I got my daughter back, drove home, and told him what had happened, sparing no details. After I finished, he was silent for a while and then told me he would talk to me once he came back home. He said he would take the next available flight, but due to a storm, he wasn't able to return until yesterday. I thought his reaction was really strange but didn't say much since, after all, it was his mother and sister who had done something so horrible. Of course, he needed time to process things. Yesterday he came back home and was really quiet the entire time. Finally, unable to take it anymore, I asked him if he had anything to say about what had happened. I couldn't tolerate the silence any longer, and I guess I shouldn't have asked at all because he told me that the first thing he did after his flight landed was visit the prison where his mother and sister were being held, awaiting trial. He said he was devastated after speaking to his mother and couldn't even bring himself to believe that something like this had happened. His mother had been sobbing while explaining that whatever she and her daughter had done was out of grief and that they regretted it. She was practically begging him to help her get out of this situation because she had realized her mistake and was ready to do whatever it took to make things right. He told me he was shattered and broke down right in front of me because he had never expected his mother or sister to do something so awful, and he was finding it difficult to come to terms with it. Here's where I might have been wrong. Instead of comforting him, I lost my cool and snapped at him because I was furious that, instead of coming home to his family, the first thing he did after landing was visit the kidnappers and criminals. I told him his mother had just been crying crocodile tears for his sympathy and that he had fallen for her act, just as she wanted him to, and was even feeling bad for her. I said that if he wanted to sympathize with his mother and sister, he was welcome to do so, but he shouldn't tell me about it and expect me to feel sorry for him when I had gone through the most traumatic experience of my life while he wasn't there. Instead of checking on me and asking how I was doing, he had visited his mother to check on her and was now crying about what they were going through instead of showing concern for his wife and daughter. I must have yelled at him for about half an hour and he just kept looking at me without a word, waiting for me to finish. Once I was done, he finally spoke. He told me the reason he didn't come straight home from the airport was because he already knew we were fine at home. The reason he visited his mother and sister first was because he had been going through a lot while stuck in another city, knowing his family was dealing with something like this. He said I didn't seem to care about how he had been feeling either. He felt helpless because he couldn't come back in time to be there for us, but I didn't ask him about it. Even now, when he was trying to share his feelings, I was screaming at him and invalidating them. I felt horrible that I had let these women enter my home and be a part of my and my daughter's lives because I thought I knew them, as they had been a part of my life for a couple of years. Then he told me to think for a second about how betrayed and lost he was feeling now that his own family, people he had known his entire life, had chosen to put me and his daughter through something so unimaginable. He apologized for not visiting us first and being insensitive, but he also wanted me to apologize for what I said and for making him feel worse about everything. I was really angry, so I told him I wasn't sorry for anything I said and doubled down on it. I told him his mother had manipulated him into thinking she was actually sorry with her fake tears, and he was falling for it too. He tried to tell me that wasn't true, and that this fight wasn't even about what his mother did, but about how the two of us had failed to think of the other person first, and were only thinking about our own feelings. I was too furious to see his point, so I refused to apologize and kept insisting he was in the wrong. This went on for a while until our daughter woke up because of all the fighting, and he left the room to attend to her. He didn't come back out to the living room where we had been, and I guessed he must have lain down in the bedroom after putting our daughter to sleep. I chose to sleep on the couch out of spite. Around midnight, about an hour after our big fight, he came by to ask me not to sleep on the couch and to come sleep in the bed, reminding me that I had some trouble with my back. I told him I was fine sleeping there again out of spite. He even offered to switch places with me, but I refused, and eventually he gave up. I could hear him crying late into the night in the bedroom because the couch was close to our bedroom door. I kept feeling awful about what had happened, but I also didn't want to apologize. I fell asleep eventually, and when I woke up this morning, it was my husband who woke me up since he was ready to leave for work. As soon as I sat up, he left without saying goodbye or looking back at me. Now that my anger has dissipated a little, I feel really guilty for how I treated him. I'm very hormonal right now, and the smallest things are enough to push me over the edge. What happened with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law was something really big, so, needless to say, I'm overly emotional. I also see my husband's point now. I've tried to think about how I would have felt if I were in his place, stuck in another city, and found out that my own mother and sister had tried to kidnap my baby. I wouldn't know how to act either. I'm still upset that he chose to visit his mother before us, but he did apologize for that. I honestly don't know if what he did was acceptable or if I overreacted, and I need to know if I should apologize for how I behaved because I'm afraid I really hurt him. I decided to apologize for reacting the way I did, as most people believed I should. Both of us were wrong. His decision to visit his mother and sister first was wrong, but my decision to yell at him and invalidate his feelings was pretty messed up as well. Both of us were being selfish, as my husband had said, and we owed each other a huge apology. After going through the comments on my original post, I gained some clarity on the situation because of everyone's fresh perspective. It's true I took things a bit too far with the yelling. We didn't say anything to each other the whole day yesterday, and we didn't speak this morning either. Toward noon, I decided I wanted to make things right and spent the afternoon buying party supplies to apologize to my husband for what happened. It was also a nice little outing for me and my daughter, so it was a win-win situation. My husband was pretty surprised when he came back home and broke down into tears again when he saw the "I'm sorry" cake I had bought for him. I ended up crying along with him because this was the longest we had gone without speaking to each other, and it was awful. I didn't want to live a life without my husband because, no matter what happens, I truly, sincerely love him. I definitely wasn't about to let a misunderstanding regarding my mother-in-law get in the way of our otherwise happy marriage. We decided to have a serious conversation about our feelings once we were done with our teary reconciliation, to get this out of the way once and for all. I told him I was disappointed that he had chosen to meet his mother and sister before us, and that I thought he should have come home first. I could understand that he felt betrayed by them and needed closure, but even then, we were his family now, the family he had chosen, so he owed it to us. He agreed with me and apologized for what he had done. He explained that he hadn't been thinking straight ever since I told him the news about what they had tried to do, and those 2 days he spent stuck in the hotel because of the storm had left him feeling even more confused, which led to him making a really stupid decision. He regretted it. He also explained that his conversation with his mother hadn't made him feel sorry for her, and if anything, it just made him feel frustrated with how his family had turned out to be. He was very upset that I had accused him of letting his mother manipulate him with her tears because, for him, nothing came above the safety and well-being of his family, and he would never compromise on that, not even for his own mother's sake. He also felt disappointed that I had started yelling at him when he was at his lowest instead of trying to understand where he was coming from. I had made matters worse by refusing to acknowledge my behavior, so I apologized for what I had done as well. Our home has found a fragile peace, a quiet calm that feels like the first rays of sunlight after a long storm. My husband and I have reconciled, acknowledging that our recent conflict stemmed from our own selfish moments. We both let our emotions cloud our judgment, but deep down, we know we're a team, bound by love and commitment, and that's how it will always be. On a separate note, many have inquired about my father-in-law's well-being. He's managing, though fine might be too generous a word. I call him daily, checking in to offer what comfort I can, and I've enlisted his next-door neighbor to keep an eye on him. This ordeal has shattered his world, and I feel a deep empathy for the pain he's enduring, knowing his wife and daughter are responsible for such a heinous act. My sister-in-law's husband, meanwhile, has chosen to file for divorce after learning of her actions. I harbor no sympathy for her or my mother-in-law. Their choices have consequences, and I find a quiet satisfaction in knowing justice is unfolding. The trauma of the incident has left us cautious. My husband has transitioned to working from home, a decision born from our shared reluctance to entrust our daughter to anyone else right now. I'm still grappling with waves of paranoia, my nerves frayed by the memory of that terrifying day. The idea of a nanny, once a practical step, feels unthinkable for the moment. Working from home offers us a sense of control, a way to cocoon our little family in safety as we navigate the aftermath. We've also made it a priority to visit my father-in-law regularly, bearing witness to his quiet suffering. He's not well, not in the way one might hope. His eyes carry a heaviness, a mix of grief and disbelief, which is only natural given the betrayal he's faced. I owe him an immeasurable debt of gratitude. Without his courage in revealing the hotel's name, I might not have my daughter back in my arms. That thought lingers, a bittersweet reminder of his integrity amidst chaos. We've tried repeatedly to reach out to my sister-in-law's husband, but he's vanished from our lives, retreating into silence after announcing his divorce plans. It's unsettling, this sudden absence, and I worry about the toll this has taken on him. Still, we persist in checking in on those affected, holding on to the threads of connection that remain. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law remain in custody, awaiting their trial. I have no intention of visiting them. Their actions, stealing my child, shattering our trust, are unforgivable in my eyes. I struggle with how I'd feel if my husband chose to see them. The thought stirs a quiet unease, a fear that it might reopen wounds we're only just beginning to heal. I want to trust his judgment, but the hurt is still raw, and I'm not sure how I'd process such a decision. At home, life has settled into a tentative rhythm, but beneath the surface there are unspoken tensions. I catch my husband staring into the distance sometimes, his eyes clouded with a sadness that tugs at my heart. I know he's struggling to process what his mother and sister did, He's not one to wear his emotions openly. The fight we had 2 weeks ago, when he poured out his grief, was a rare glimpse into his inner world. Normally, he bottles everything up, tucking his feelings into a corner of his mind until something small, a misplaced key, a minor frustration, triggers a collapse. It's happened before, these sudden breakdowns that leave him an emotional wreck for days. I've urged him to seek help, to find a way to navigate his emotions before they overwhelm him, but he brushes it off, insisting he's fine. I know better. This incident is no small thing. It's a seismic event, one that could fracture him if he keeps pushing it down. I want to talk to him, to help him unravel the tangle of emotions I know he's carrying. But I need to do so with care, without pushing too hard, or making him feel cornered. The weight of this realization pressed on me, and I knew I couldn't let him spiral alone. Last night, after we tucked our daughter into bed, I resolved to confront the issue head-on. I couldn't watch him suffocate under the weight of his unspoken pain, hoping it would simply fade. I told him we needed to talk, that he couldn't keep running from his feelings, pretending they'd vanish on their own. At first, he resisted, his usual defense mechanism kicking in as he tried to dismiss my concerns with a forced smile. But I pressed on, gently but firmly, explaining that bottling up his emotions would only trap him in his own mind. A prison of unresolved grief and guilt. I urged him to share, to let me in, because I couldn't bear to see him suffer in silence. He fell silent, the room heavy with anticipation. I waited, giving him space to gather his thoughts. After about 3 minutes, marked by a few deep, steadying breaths, he began to speak. His voice was soft, almost fragile, as he confessed he'd been feeling numb for weeks. When he first learned what his mother had done, a storm of emotions had consumed him: anger, frustration, betrayal, and a deep, aching sadness. Even during our fight, when we clashed over his visit to the prison, he was caught in a whirlwind of conflicting feelings. But now, with time passing, those emotions had faded into an unsettling void, a hollow space where his heart used to be. Spending time with our daughter and me brought him some solace, a tether to the present, but he was still lost, struggling to make sense of the unimaginable. He spoke of his mother, a woman he had loved and admired his entire life, whose actions now seemed like those of a stranger. He couldn't reconcile the mother he knew with the one who had tried to steal our child. His sister, too, whom he had cherished and protected, had shattered his trust with her complicity. He had always been close to his family, their bond a cornerstone of his life. But now he had resolved never to see them again. That decision, though firm, left him grappling with a profound sense of loss. Compounding his pain was the guilt of not being here when it happened, of being stranded in another city, unable to protect us. He admitted that this guilt, this sense of failure, had begun to erode his sense of self, leaving him feeling empty and useless. As he spoke, my heart ached for him. I saw the strength it took for him to hold it together for so long, to be our rock even as his world crumbled. Tears welled in my eyes, not just for his pain but for the love that still bound us, even through this darkness. I didn't say much, knowing words couldn't fully bridge the gap, but I told him he needed to speak to a professional, someone trained to help him navigate this grief. For the first time, he didn't resist. He nodded, his eyes meeting mine with a quiet resolve. We held each other for what felt like 10 minutes, our embrace a silent promise to face this together. Then, we went to bed, a small step toward healing. We've already begun searching for a mental health professional near us, a concrete step towards supporting him through this. I'm also planning to speak with my father-in-law soon, to check on his emotional well-being and offer whatever support I can. Both of these men, my husband and his father, have shown incredible strength, and I want to ensure they don't face their pain alone. The road ahead feels uncertain, but I hold on to hope that, with time and effort, we'll find our way to a brighter future. This experience has taught me the fragility of trust and the resilience of love. My husband and I have faced a trial that could have broken us, but instead, it's reminded us of what truly matters: our family, our commitment, our shared strength. I think often of my daughter, her innocent smile a beacon of light in this darkness. She's too young to understand what happened, but I'm determined to protect her, to give her a life filled with love and security. As for my husband, I'll keep encouraging him to open up, to lean on me and others, because I know that healing comes from connection, not isolation. And for my father-in-law, I'll continue to be there, a steady presence as he navigates his own grief. Together, we'll rebuild, not just for ourselves, but for the future we want to create, a future where trust is earned, love is unwavering, and our daughter grows up knowing she is safe and cherished. He had always been close to his family, but he had made up his mind, nevertheless, that he was never going to see any of them again. The fact that he hadn't been there for us when it happened was also making him feel really guilty. He said that maybe it was because of this incident that he had begun to feel really empty and useless. After he was done, I had tears in my eyes because my husband had been so strong for so long. I didn't speak much, but told him he needed to talk to a professional to deal with this adequately. For the first time, he agreed to it. We hugged for about 10 minutes after that and then went to sleep. We've started looking for a mental health professional near us already. And I'm also planning to speak to my father-in-law soon regarding this, because I truly want the best for both of these wonderful men. I just really hope things get better for us in the future.